warm greeting to our online participants. A live translation will be available throughout this event on the Zoom session. Please do not hesitate to ask questions in the chat. We'll have time for this in the end of the event. And now we'll address the audience. Bonjour. Merci beaucoup à tous de votre présence.
Thank you everyone for your presence.
Mes salutations à notre président.
My humble salutation to pronounce to the C20 Chair Amma.
Chaleureuse bienvenue à toutes les personnes ici présentes. Au nom du groupe du travail de Stéphane.
On behalf of the C20 India Working Group in Sustainable and Resilient Communities, I welcome you on this seminar on Ecovillages. The working group on the Working Group Resilience is one of the 14 groups on the C20 India and focus on climate resilience, social justice, environmental sustainability and net zero emission targets. An approach based on compassion-driven approach to sustainable and resilient communities. The working group is coordinated by Manisha Sudhir, India coordinator of Amrita Vishwa Vidyapeetham University, Professor Vinod Menon, international coordinator and regional director of AGITMs, Oslo and Brussels. Dr. Ati Shivan, international coordinator, chairman of Heritage Veri Foundation in Malaysia. Through knowledge sharing, multilateral and international engagement and raising awareness among CSOs, policy influencers, academicians, public, policymakers and the youth, we look forward to achieving the C20 India 2013 vision. You are the light. As part of the working group, we are here to explore pathways to build resilience in changing climate. Building climate resilience involves a range of strategies, collaboration and actions, such as improving infrastructure and land use planning, diversifying source of incomes, enhancing social safety nets, strengthening ecosystem and promoting adaptive governance. These actions can help reduce vulnerability and enhance adaptive capacity, while also providing co-benefits such as improved food security and shared life between everybody. Please join me in welcoming distinguished guests. Swamini Amrita Jyoti Prana, Mr. Jean-Claude Fiesta Pongwan Mayor, thank you so much for your presence. Dr. Vinod Menon, coordinator of the C20 working group, Madame Celia Ibu-Swansing and Mathieu Labonne. Madame Makako Temeris and Swami Shubhamritananda Puri. Before continuing our discussions, let's pray. Thank you very much. I will ask Romini Amritajati Prana to come on the stage. She's president of Embracing the World France and directress of the AMA Center here. She is president of the Foundation of France, representative of spirituality in France.
I'm delighted to see you all together here. Welcome to everybody online. I am thankful to the mayor who accepted to be among us today. We are here in a small village called Pongouin, about 120 kilometers west of Paris. And since 2002, this place has become the AMA Center, the branch of the AMA's Foundation in France, the seat of ETW-France, the name of the association. This place is dedicated to transmit AMA's message, a message of peace, solidarity. That's the main word for AMA is compassion, a message of force and strength as well, a message that tells us, like the topic of this C20, you are the light, we are lights. In everybody there is an enormous potential. This site is dedicated to allow everybody to to fully develop their potential. For 20 years now, AMA arrived in France for the first time in 1987. This site has attracted lots of people, and among those people who stayed for some time, a group was interested in ecology, environment. We've always been taken care of planting hundreds of trees, fruit trees. We started a garden, organic garden, about 1 hectare that's being farmed in market gardening. We've always been very much interested in ecology and relation with nature, and to give you the essence of the relation with nature, I'm going to read a quote by AMA. Nature gives everything to people, human beings. We should do the same. We should take care of nature as she takes care of us. Then harmony between nature and men will be preserved. This word, harmony, is very important. It translates the Sanskrit word dharma, which means balance, what is fair. And among all those persons who were attracted by this site, some settled in the village or in the neighborhood, and the land just across the road that leads to the center were put to sale. And among all the people that were interested by this place, and others too had the bright idea Let's quote Mathieu Labonne, for example, wanted to create a center, an eco-village, to to have a balance between what nature gives us and what we give to nature, or at least not to spoil nature, to work with nature. That's our philosophy. There's no separation between man and nature. Man belongs to nature. It's one thing. So this idea sprouted to buy the land and to build an eco-village. We can give you one or two examples. Just to give you 2 points, limit our footprint. Let's be down to earth. Every time we go to the toilets, we use lots of liters of drinking water that go down. But there are dry toilets, and we spare all this water. Same thing. I speak of something that started 10 years ago. We can harvest wastewater through a phytodepuration system to treat water so that it can be used to water the gardens. There are few aspects that showcase the material aspect of the eco-village, but there's a more subtle side to it. Eco-village means sharing, mutualizing, for example, washing machines. Instead of having one washing machine per house, we share 3. So living together reduces the footprint. It compels us to work on ourselves in a society that's becoming more and more individualistic, and that means lots of bad points for nature. So we come back to listening to each other in the same way as we're not separated from nature, we're not separated from one another. Solidarity between all the people who live this project. It's taken many years, but it could be one of the largest eco-village in France. That's a project that could happen everywhere. Needs common values, a certain will to work on oneself, and we need a link with nature, a desire to be close to nature, to open our hearts so that we don't take more than what nature can offer, so that the world can be more resilient and sustainable. That's the end. Thank you.
Thanks you a lot, Swamini, for those introducing words. I'm honored to introduce Mr. Mayor of Pongouin, Mr. Jean-Claude Friès. Mr. Mayor was very present historically in this association period in various ways. He continues to today to be committed for the rural dynamism. Mr. Mayor is at its second mandate as Mayor of Pongouin, and he's very appreciated by his citizens. On a professional basis, he was working at the Postal Service. We are really pleased, Mr. Mayor, to gather your words here.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. It's a great honor for me to be asked to say a few words to welcome you and introduce the topic of this afternoon. The topic is Ecovillages, a fertile ground for more sustainable and resilient human communities. When the Plessis Ecovillage project was presented to the local elected representatives of Pongouin, I was a village councillor. In 2014, I felt some of my fellow councillors were doubtful and even suspicious. Not everybody was keen to see the arrival of some smart ecological know-it-all who wanted to promote the largest French eco-village. Not everybody wanted that. I was elected mayor in 2016 and I got interested in this project. Lots of obstacles have been removed. Things have changed a lot. Houses have been built. First inhabitants settled there. A community house is going to open its doors soon. Most reservations have been overcome. Dialogue has been established with neighbors. The eco-villages have become part of the village population and taken an active part in the local life. As the mayor of Pongouin, I'd like to explain how a village of 1,400 inhabitants can benefit from such a project. The Plessis Eco-Village has attracted people keen to lead a more sustainable life, respectful of nature. This has helped revitalize our village by starting a new dynamic. All generations are represented within the new inhabitants. Young couples started families. In 2023, a new baby was born, and now the eco-village counts 9 children. It's an asset for the future of our village and area. Such a young population stimulates innovation and creativity. This has meant new local jobs and economic growth. Typically, the Maison Jaune, an associative cafe, was launched by Claire, a member of the Eco-Village. The Eco-Village is an asset for our village in terms of sustainable, environmental friendly development and social links. New economic opportunities in such fields as organic food production through a collaboration with the Plessis Organic Market Gardeners is the best proof. A new farm is being set up, and new greenhouses have arrived and will soon be set up. Other inhabitants who were interested in Montessori schooling have opened a school right in the center of the village. The school has attracted new families, and it teaches 19 children. So new families arrived in the village who were interested. A group of newcomers have set up an association that organizes activities for toddlers and children. The Plessis Eco-Village has implemented ecological practices and promoted green spaces and nature. It therefore offers a healthier environment and a high quality of life for its residents. Biodiversity is encouraged, and relaxation and leisure areas have been created. Today, the eco-village arouses the curiosity of the inhabitants of the village, the Goni-Pontins, as they are called. They often pass through the village to follow the progress of the work and discover techniques as phytodepuration of wastewater and more energy-efficient building techniques. The Ecovillage is an initiative to promote citizen participation and collaboration between village residents and a way of life that takes into account the future of our planet's resources. At the last village elections in 2020, 2 members of the Ecovillage were elected on the list with me. These active councillors help strengthen social ties and dialogue within the village. One is a member of the Village Social Action Centre, the other is in charge of the village library and the village magazine. Last but not least, the members of the Plessis village contribute to the preservation of the environment by promoting sustainable practices and without being arrogant smart pants that encourage the adoption of ecological behavior. An opportunity for a village like ours to have inhabitants who manage their own wastewater, and an opportunity for the waste collecting organization to collect all the rubbish from a district at a central point managed by people. These examples illustrate the political implementation of the ideas behind this project. The overview would be incomplete if I didn't conclude with what I believe is the most important contribution of the Eco-Village to our village. The values developed there: solidarity, engagement, friendship, which are beneficial for everyone. That's I warmly thank all the people that got engaged and build this project today.
Thank you a lot, Mr. Mayor, for those words, full of solidarity that you mentioned a lot of times. Thank you for all the municipal council that joined us today, and we are really thankful for this. We are going to go through the more international way of this conference. I'm pleased to share with you Vinod Chandra Menon. Mr. Vinod Chandra Menon has over 37 years working experience working on disaster risk reduction, climate change adaptation, and adaptation of public policy and societies to climate change, analysis of political policies. He has been in charge of emergency preparedness and response in the National India UNICEF office from 2002 to 2005. The Prime Minister of India in 2005 asked us to found the National Authority, the National Disaster Management Authority of the Indian government. He had the status of a Minister of State. He has been invited to address several international conferences, and he is in the advisory board of and governing boards of several institutions. Mr. Menon, if you had the kindness to share the advances of the working group today. It seems that we have a small technical issue, and before Mr. Menon can join us, I will ask the speakers to come on the stage. Please welcome Celia Ibou-Swansig, member of the board of the Ecohameau du Plessis, after a master's degree in engineering. She's part of the Ecovillage since 2015. Mathieu Labonne, also, who is CEO of Coopérative Oasis, a network of ecovillages in France. The cooperative contributed, lists more than 1,000 projects and actively contributes to the participation to 150 ecovillages. And I also will ask Macao Timothy to come back afterwards.
Dorian, I'm fine. Yes, sir. Hello. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can see you. We can hear you very well, and you can start speaking. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. It's a great privilege and to address this very distinguished gathering of Honorable Mayor Swamini and also Miss Sylvia, Mr. Matthew, Miss Nakako, and the other distinguished councillors in the Municipal Council, and the very distinguished delegates present there in the Eco Village. I'm very honored to hear the history of the Eco Village, which the Honorable Mayor mentioned. This is actually very remarkable. When we had the opportunity to see the video of the Eco Village during the conclave which we had in India, the delegates were really very impressed with the work which has been going on in the Eco Village. And we finally believe that the work which has been a work of compassion, a work which is very close to the heart of people who are disciples and devotees of Amma, the Honorable Chair of the C20, which has 14 working groups, as Dorian mentioned. The civil society platform is working with the mission of trying to basically make sure that everybody is involved in this whole process of working towards peace, solidarity, and also compassion, because there is a lot of conflict, there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of distress in the world, which we are actually seeing in many countries around the world. And the global pandemic has shown that there is a need for all of us to help each other. And I have been hearing about the work of the Eco Village and was very fortunate and privileged to watch the film, which was actually released during the good practice examples, the Udaharans, which were actually mentioned during the conclave in Gangtok in Sikkim in India, when Dorian was also present. And we believe that the work which all of you are doing is extremely important. And we feel that this is actually showing the way for humanity, that with love, with compassion, with a fellow feeling for everybody, when we are actually able to live together as human beings and respect each other, that is the best blessing which we can actually have. I want to thank you for giving me this opportunity and wish you all the very best. And I would look forward to listening to the presentations by the distinguished speakers. Thank you very much. Namaskar.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Menon, for this encouraging words and this perspective on our working group today. Thank you so much for your presence, because I know that your agenda is really full and we've got a lot of chance for you to join in for those 2 hours. We'll now go deep in our conference and share the experience. We decided to organize this working group with the things that comes from the fields, because that's how we understand what the C20 is about. NGOs, citizens, to understand the big issues of the society and how they can bring some response that corresponds to the reality of the daily life. We will now share the experience of the Ecohameau du Plessis that is very near from us. Celia will introduce on this dimension, then we'll speak about the national dimensions, because we have the chance to have here Mathieu Labonne, who is CEO of the Coopérative Oasis, that is a network of eco-villages here in France, with a larger diversity of eco-villages. And then Macaco Temeris, that was implicated in the global eco-village network for a lot of years with many responsibilities, will give us a perspective, an international perspective, with examples of other countries in other parts of the world. We will conclude by an exchange between all the speakers, with a last word from Amritananda Puri, the representative of the C20.
Hello, everybody. Before I talk about my experience, we'll launch a video that will show you a few images of our project and to make you to have an idea of the project.
De la géographie, du terrain, on va essayer de faire un peu le tour, puis voir ce qu'on a déjà mis en œuvre et puis aussi voir les perspectives de mise en œuvre, et puis si vous avez des questions. Grosso modo, quand on regarde vue du ciel, on a donc 4 hectares de terrain avec une petite partie de l'autre côté du chemin par lequel vous êtes arrivé, qu'on appelle la partie nord.
Vous allez voir dans la visite, c'est que vous n'allez pas avoir de clôture. En fait, chaque maison, elle est sur une petite parcelle. Et après, l'ensemble du reste du terrain, il est commun. Donc avant qu'on ait tout construit, il y a encore sans doute 3-4 ans. Voilà.
L'Ecohameau du Plessis, c'est un habitat participatif écologique qui est situé à Pongouin, en Eure-et-Loir. Donc c'est à 20 km à l'ouest de Chartres, on est à 1h30 de Paris à peu près. C'est un projet qui rassemble aujourd'hui 28 foyers qui vont chacun construire leur logement individuel de façon écologique sur un terrain au total de 4 hectares. Donc on a beaucoup d'espace. Et c'est un projet qu'on a commencé en 2013, qui s'est vraiment accéléré en 2017 avec la première maison qui a commencé en 2018. Et depuis, les maisons se construisent progressivement.
Donc dès le départ a été établi un cahier des charges et il y avait plusieurs points qu'il fallait suivre. Donc la maison doit être construite avec des matériaux biosourcés, on doit avoir les toilettes sèches, la production d'eau chaude doit se faire ou bien avec le solaire ou bien avec des chauffe-eau thermodynamiques pour aller vers des constructions qui soient le plus possible respectueuses de l'environnement, qui aient le moindre empreinte écologique.
Donc l'important c'était que j'apprenne le plus de choses et que je construise ma maison moi-même. J'ai monté un mur en briques, je pose du lambris, je vais faire le carrelage, le parquet, toutes les finitions, toute la déco, voilà.
La force de l'Ecohameau dans ce projet, c'est que je ne suis pas tout seul à travailler sur la maison. J'ai plein de personnes qui peuvent m'aider. La mutualisation de la force vive et des savoir-faire, et même du matériel. Donc on est sur un projet individuel, certes, mais connecté avec la force de l'Ecohameau.
L'intérêt de ce projet, tel qu'on l'a conçu, c'est d'avoir à la fois une maison individuelle sur une petite parcelle et l'ensemble du reste du terrain est géré de façon collective. Donc sur ces terrains communs, on construit des bâtiments, par exemple des buanderies collectives, on a une grande maison commune où il y aura des chambres d'amis, des salles de réunion, un espace de coworking. Comme ça, on accède finalement à ces services-là sans l'avoir de façon individuelle. Donc c'est finalement la dimension collective du projet qui permet d'accéder à un mode de vie plus écologique.
Toutes les eaux, donc, qui sont les eaux grises, arrivent vers 3 stations de phytoépuration qui sont installées dans le terrain et auxquelles toutes les maisons sont raccordées. Et l'eau qui arrive là est filtrée par les plantes. L'eau qui sort, elle est de qualité rivière et par des noues, par des fossés, elle accède à une mare qui, elle, est un centre de biodiversité, mais aussi un endroit où on peut capter l'eau pour arroser les jardins.
On a donc 4,3 hectares de terrain. On a prévu des zones très bien jardinées autour des parcelles maisons construites, mais on a laissé des zones plus sauvages au bout du terrain. Par exemple, il y a la bande forestière. À mi-chemin, il y a les vergers avec les fruitiers. On en a 2 pour l'instant, surtout des arbres pas trop hauts pour qu'on puisse récolter. Et puis on a des cuves de récupération d'eau de pluie au sein des placettes.
Le poulailler a été construit pendant une experience week. Le principe, c'est qu'on nous a offert la grosse brouette qui est en dessous avec pour mission de construire un poulailler mobile dessus. De façon à ce que les 5 ou 6 poules qui peuvent habiter dans le poulailler, elles puissent être dans différents endroits du verger ou des jardins. Et à leur manière, elles font le travail de désherbage.
L'Ecohameau du Plessis s'inscrit dans un ensemble de projets qui seront regroupés un petit peu dans la même zone, donc très proches les uns des autres. Un de ces projets est un projet de résidence pour les personnes seniors, donc des personnes seules ou en couple qui pourront être accueillies dans 22 logements. Donc il y aura un bâtiment qui va se construire, qui sera à côté de l'Ecohameau du Plessis. Et l'existence de ce bâtiment permettra d'avoir des échanges intergénérationnels avec l'Ecohameau, également un échange de savoir, éventuellement des activités mises en commun, etc. Donc ce sera un peu comme un archipel de projets, en tout cas un écosystème qui travaillera ensemble, où il y aura des liens, il y aura des activités entre ces projets et aussi des échanges entre les habitants de ces différents projets.
Avec autant de monde, naturellement, la ruche va essaimer. Et elle a déjà commencé. Un projet de maraîchage, un projet de café associatif qui se sont déjà développés. Et donc là, on est dans une tendance où on ramène une centaine d'habitants dans un village d'1 millier d'habitants, c'est conséquent. Et on va avoir des commerces qui, du coup, vont se réouvrir. Et Claire en est l'exemple. Elle a créé un café qui, non seulement est un commerce qui rouvre, mais aussi qui a une dimension, je dirais, politique, écologique, avec le point de rencontre entre les gens du village, de l'Ecohameau, de la ferme, et aussi, du coup, organiser un certain nombre d'animations. Elle va embaucher localement en faisant travailler des cuisiniers, en servant des repas. Donc c'est vraiment la dimension de l'archipel qui prend tout son sens.
L'Ecohameau s'organise à 3 niveaux différents. D'abord, il y a la plénière qui accueille 4 fois par an tous les foyers de l'Ecohameau, donc 28 foyers, et qui décide ensemble des orientations du projet. Ensuite, il y a le comité de pilotage qui est plus opérationnel et il assure avec ses 7 représentants élus une gestion opérationnelle de l'Ecohameau. Il coordonne par exemple les pôles et les groupes de travail, ce qui va donner de suivre en phase de construction du projet les aménagements tels que la maison commune ou les buanderies, mais c'est aussi superviser l'intégration de nouveaux membres au projet, les sujets de vivre ensemble, la communication ou même des choix liés à l'aménagement du jardin. Et enfin, il y a les pôles et groupes de travail qui, eux, sont des lieux de réflexion et de réalisation en lien avec des thématiques spécifiques comme les travaux, le jardin, la communication ou le vivre ensemble.
Vivre ensemble, on pourrait penser que c'est facile si on y met du cœur. Et c'est vrai, c'est le premier ingrédient. Mais cela se prépare. Et je dirais qu'il y a pour moi 2 aspects fondamentaux, voire 3. Il y a un aspect qui est de trouver une gouvernance qui nous convienne à tous, qui respecte les valeurs communes de l'Ecohameau. Il va y avoir le fait que chacun puisse trouver son espace d'intimité. Et enfin, un autre ingrédient qui est fondamental et sur lequel nous sommes vraiment en train de travailler aujourd'hui, c'est les espaces que l'on appelle subjectifs et à la fois collectifs. C'est-à-dire tous ces espaces de rencontres qui vont nous permettre de prévenir des potentiels conflits.
Et là, tu vois, on va mettre les courgettes ici, puis on mettra les courges là-bas.
On n'apprend pas à vivre ensemble. Par contre, on peut peut-être apprendre à être les uns près des autres, les uns à côté des autres. Et une des qualités, c'est de pouvoir apprendre à écouter et s'entraîner à parler de soi, à parler comme on peut et à grandir dans cette parole, c'est-à-dire une parole encore plus juste de nos sentiments, de nos besoins.
Qui avait des impossibilités pour... Ce qui a motivé les personnes qui sont impliquées dans le projet, qui sont venues habiter ici ou qui s'impliquent dans le projet de l'Ecohameau, ça a été de se rassembler autour de valeurs communes comme la sobriété, le partage, l'échange, mais aussi des valeurs plus écologiques et de respect des cycles de la vie, que ce soit la vie naturelle ou la vie humaine. Et vraiment, ce qui nous rassemble aussi, c'est la volonté d'expérimenter différents modes de vie qui sont centrés donc sur ces valeurs-là, écologiques et humaines.
Thanks for your attention. I will ask Celia to speak now. She's been member of the project, Ecovillage project, since 2017. She contributed to the construction of the filter purification system, and she's one of the 7 members of the Ecovillage steering committee. After a master's degrees in engineering, she had a further experience in industry and then in the field of energy efficiency and building renovation. She's passionate about art and dance. Celia, please.
I hope that this video gave you an idea of what the Ecovillage is. In addition to the video, I'd like to give some more news about the Ecovillage and talk about my experience as an inhabitant. This video was shot in 2020, and now you have a few more inhabitants. We've started the building of the community house, which will house a common hall, shared guest rooms upstairs, and a co-working space for various shared activities. This building is at the heart of the project and contributes to the notion of shared spaces and reducing our footprint. I joined the project in 2017. I've been living there really for 2 years. I am an engineer. I've started working in a big company, and then I went to lean management and energy renovation consultancy to help other people reduce their energy consumption. It's aligned with the project. A few years, and my partner and me and I lived in a small flat in the Paris suburbs in an old building heated with gas. I don't remember how much energy we consumed then, but today I know for sure we consume about 2 or 3 cubic meters of wood per year for heating. We only have a stove and we use a little electricity to supplement our solar thermal hot water as it was defined in our Our eco-village is a sort of small laboratory of construction techniques. Each household is responsible for building its own house. So we have different technical choices and building choices, and we see what it is like to live there, and that's been used as basic service in the training of thermal engineers. With the rest of the projects in future, we can have more choice. As an inhabitant, what is most important for me is human dimension of the project. We left this little flat and we've chosen to live with a housemate in a semi-detached house. And so do our neighbors, who are friends, who built with us this semi-detached house. We therefore optimize space and energy, and it creates more linked social ties. We're very lucky to have a big patio regularly. It hosts workshops for children of the Eco-Village, and it's very joyful for me. And that's big difference, makes big difference with the city life we had before, where we hardly knew our village neighbors. I'm a member of the steering committee, so I know that this kind of project is really time-consuming and demanding. We started, but we still have a lot to work. Two things made the project possible. First, Amma's inspiration and the time and financial commitment of the members of the project. We also were lucky to receive a little financial support from the region. To conclude, in the approach of the C20, I'd like to say that the importance of the institutional recognition that should encourage the birth of those projects.
Thank you a lot for this presentation. I have a follow-up question, if you like. To go deeper in what you presented, would you mind to precise regarding the construction of the eco-village, what will facilitate the uprising of those projects, collective citizenship projects?
Yes, of course. There are several aspects, of course, but I would like to concentrate on one aspect, which is the regulatory aspect. I was involved in setting up our wastewater treatment system. As you saw in the video, we have a phytodepuration system, a natural filtering process of depolluting wastewater using plants. It's very good, but it requires lots of space, lots of land. But this land surface has been reduced by half, thanks to a national organization in charge of the wastewater treatment. This system is not yet very fashionable, and we had to negotiate with the national organization in charge of the wastewater treatment. One of the most important aspects is to have people who are ready to negotiate and who support.
So that proves that we need to facilitate the work between government and political agencies and people that runs the project. I will invite now Mathieu Labonne, which is CEO of and fundator of the Coopérative Oasis, a network of eco-villages in France. The cooperative works with a lot of projects today. He's personally participated in the creation of more than 150 of them. He was, before this, a space engineer and a former climatologist. He was also director of the association Colibri and initiated the Ecovillages of the Plessis since 2010. He is the coordinator of the Ferme du Plessis, Ahmad's ashram near Paris. Hello, everyone. Thanks a lot for the organization of this event. I'm really honored to share with you the panorama of the Ecovillages in France. For me, Ecovillages are a third way to address current challenges on ecological and social challenges. There's the scope of individual changes that are essential, but for which we may sometimes feel alone. There's also, change can also be political, but individuals might feel powerless in front of the changes. And there's also the collective actions and the scale of human relations, communities, civil society. This is really the link with civil society, which we honor with the C20 today. Individuals are able to change, but an ecovillage can have influence of public policy. Ecovillage is in a way the culmination of this collective approach, and the benefits that are not limited to environmental issues. They are also benefit from solidarity, inclusiveness, and economic resilience of territories. I'm speaking today as the CEO of the cooperative Oasis. I will present it. It's an organization that assembles ecovillages in France. We accompany some network with, for example, a festival with more than 100 people that will come. We do some training for citizens, online training. We accompany some people on legal, finance, governance issues. And we also finance projects, as the banks do not finance well at all those type of projects. So more than 600 citizens have invested several millions euros in the cooperative. And with this, we were able to finance 45 ecovillages, including the community house here at the Ecohameau du Plessis. Why do we speak of oasis in France more than ecovillage? The term ecovillage often refers to large-scale projects. In France here, we have more little scale. So the term oasis regroups different types of realities, and I will share the panorama of those. The cooperative has more than 1,200 projects here in France, which is a lot, but at the cooperative we accompanied more than 400 of them. I will present to you the diversity of this project. And those projects have different needs. The form of ecovillage is not the same. Most of ecovillages in France are ecovillages with activities, small groups with about 10 families that go together to buy a property in the countryside, a small castle, a farm, sometimes an abandoned hamlet, and they make some apartments, some habitats, some common spaces to share, but also set up economic activities to work on site. For example, the Château Partagé here in France, 6 families that bought a little castle where they live with common spaces, but there are also 2 participants that are organic bakers. One is a market gardener, one other people create an ecotourism activity. Lots of examples of those type in France. The second type of oasis are ecovillages, like the Ecohameau du Plessis. It's a large scale with it's more habitat, it's less mutualization. It's also thematic places, a lot in France. Some have spiritual centers, Christians, Buddhists, ashrams also. But there's also thematic place with more political, like Longomai, a rural anarchist community in southeast of France. About 10% of projects. Another type are youth ecovillages, projects that are created by people in their 20s, 30s. It's more like the climate generation. They have the courage to create very communal and collective places. Those young people, that the arrival of children and the integration of older people, these places transform themselves. There are some participatory habitats, which are more urban projects. They are more complex to assemble, but they want to live in the city. It's a similar dynamic that we see in Germany, Switzerland, or Nordic countries, where we've got a lot of those participatory habitats. The sixth category are what we sometimes called ecological third place. There are no people living here, but it's more a place for reception and activities. For example, here the Îlot des Combles is a group of several Muslims that created a center for permaculture training. And at least some unclassifiable place. For example, Project Terra is in the south of France. Terra is in 3 different municipalities with a large number of citizens, and they are developing many projects, building a rural district, eco-construction training center, farms, associated grocery stores. This territory is transforming with the aim to relocate all basic needs within 30-kilometer radius, with the idea that is ambitions to give an universal basic income in an alternative local currency. Despite this diversity, this is why we speak of oasis, because there's no one way to do, there are different ways. What's really interesting, they have similar impact, despite the diversity. 2 different benefits. Environmental side, for example, the carbon footprint, and also social benefits. We made a carbon footprint of 30 ecovillages in France, and we've seen that, in average, the carbon footprint on the ecovillage is twice as low as the average French person, which is enormous. It's linked to the building that are well isolated, eco-constructed, and mutualization, but also because people in ecovillage consumes less, about 4 times less of services, equipment, leisure services, clothing, because we repair, mutualize, share, and also because we don't need to, as there's a lot of social link, we don't need to see in other places. Regarding mobility, travels, the disparity is very strong. For example, in the Ecohameau du Plessis is one of our main weaknesses. But some other places have shared electric vehicles. The Moulin Bleu project, they have 4 vehicles for 20 young people living here, so we can see that on the travels also they are working. Other impacts, more social, that show that we can be more sober and autonomous with more social links. There's a study called RCI that tries to measure the quality of the link between themselves and also the territory. This study has found that there's a considerable difference. This way of life allows in terms of trust in the neighborhood, the trust in the neighborhood, and this encourages people to cooperate better. Those projects is good for the inhabitants, but also it recreates a good territory environment. So to sum up, France has certain specificities. There's a great dynamic in France. In the global Ecovillage network, they talk about the French Revolution because there are lots of projects, more than 100 projects per year, but there are small projects which is they work in network thanks to the cooperative. They are really linked to their territory because they are small. They create local boundaries and they are real catalysts for the transition of their territory. When an eco-village starts, there's also the transition of the territory. A specificity of France is that it reinvests in many heritage sites, historic sites that can no longer be taken care by a single family, and so eco-village project can maintain them. So we see a lot of castle that revives thanks to eco-village projects. At the level of public policies, even if we have here a mayor that is with us, however, we see that the support for public policies is still weak. There's much more public support for third places, which is a much more urban dynamic, far less effective in rural areas. Support from elected officials is especially necessary for urban planning issues. Many projects want to use light reversible housing because it costs less. It's and many authorities unfamiliar with the legal ways to welcome those projects. And with inflation, the question of financing is important because banks don't understand those projects. So an issue to finance those projects. Finally, public authorities have to have an important role to support this new lifestyle, to show that it's possible. This issue is to share existing initiatives with a wider audience and have more social diversity in them so that more people know about Ecovillage. Thanks a lot to hear me today. I know that ecovillages are getting wider and wider. May this ecovillage initiative be better known by the leader of the G20, thanks to Amma's works for the C20. I would have a little question for you. You've asked about relocation here today. With this example, with the example of Terra to work about 30 kilometers radius around the project, do you think this relocation is necessary, or there's a lot of work for relocation, usually for basic needs, construction, food, lots of issues. But there's also industry that needs to be done to a wider scale. For the French example, that very centralized relocation with a link to the history. So we speak about economy and also We need to go through a world that is much more decentralized. The solution at Pongouin here in France is not the same that in Africa or in India. Each territory needs to find its solutions.
Merci beaucoup. Donc on aura l'occasion d'approfondir un petit peu tout ça par la suite. Il y a des tables rondes.
We will go deeper at the end of the... We will now hear from Macaco Teneris, who is a representative of the Global Ecovillage Network. Macaco is a sociologist, life coach, and specialized in community building and conflict resolution. She lives in Damadour Ecovillage since 1993, where she assumes many social and artistic responsibilities. In 2008, she became vice president and then president of the Global Ecovillage Network for Europe until 2015. She is today representative of GEN to the United Nations and also president of the NGO Damadour Education. She is also multilingual international speaker, hosts numerous courses and seminars. She also toured as a professional singer. Lots of competence. Thanks a lot for your presence. And we'll be happy to hear about you, about other eco-villages around the world. Thank you a lot.
Merci beaucoup. Je suis très honoreux d'être ici. Et mon français est pas suffisant pour parler, mais seulement pour merci beaucoup pour l'organisation. And now I will switch to English. And thank you so much. And I think Mathieu just finished on a note that I can come in a really, really good way, because diversity really also is the key word when we talk about the Global Ecovillage Network. First of all, also Oasis has been at least 8 or if not 10 years part of the Global Ecovillage Network. I was still president of Gen Europe when they joined. And so it's really a big pleasure, because inside of the Global Ecovillage Network, and let me share my screen so that you can see here. Let me just a sec, and I will share a little bit. So here you can see the map of ecovillages. So ecovillages actually are, the word ecovillages was coined to talk about communities, about places that were coming up all over the world and that were trying to thrive in the 4 dimensions of sustainability. So in the social, economy, ecology, and worldview. And at the moment, there are 6,090 ecovillages that we can count, so that are part of the Global Ecovillage Network in 114 different countries. This is the, just a sec, this is the, let's say, the mandala of the Global Ecovillage Network. And it had the principles that you can see on the left has been created by a long research of years in order to find out what creates a holistic approach to society. And one of the things that ecovillages are really proud of is that they are using participatory design to integrate the ecologic, social, and cultural dimension of the sustainability into a whole system pathway towards a regenerative future. Now, there are a lot of ecovillages that are in the global north. So the Ecovillage Network is composed of intentional communities, which are mainly in the global north, and also a lot about traditional villages and projects and permaculture projects, and a lot of projects. And as I said before, of ecovillages and traditional villages that transitioned into ecovillages in the global south. So I was asked to talk especially about the interaction between communities, eco-villages, and government. So what kind of interactions are there, and especially in the global south. So I would like to start with the Otepik eco-village, which is in Kitale in Kenya. And a young guy, Philip Munyaza, about 10 years ago, he had the possibility to study permaculture outside of Kenya. And he would have the possibility to stay in the United States, but he decided to go back to the slums where he was living in Kintale, to go back and bring permaculture and bring a different approach to life also to the slums. And so what he did, he was greening the slums. He created food and soil and wells in Kitale, in the slums. He had a lot of fundings that comes from Europe, mainly, which is more a private way of funding. He does not have a relationship with big organizations, but he has been doing, he made really the difference in the slums, because now there is fresh food. As you can see, the children are having fresh food and they have water, which is the biggest challenge. And another really exciting project that is against malnutrition it started in Zimbabwe with Mugove Nyika, and he is a school teacher. He used to be a school teacher, but he's also an ambassador for the Global Eco-Village Network. And he saw that very often the children were not able to concentrate in the schools because they were having hunger. They were hungry. They were so hungry that they could not really concentrate on the content. And so he said, but we really also, because if we want to educate the new leaders of our future, we have to be able to show them how to do things differently. And so he brought permaculture to the schools and he started greening the schools. And this project, together with the children and with the parents, and this project was so successful that it has been exported into many different African countries, both in Malawi, Zambia, Uganda, and Kenya. And it's really heartwarming to see how you can transform bare land where the soil is just being eroded as soon as winds come or waters come, and to have again an ecosystem, to recreate and to regenerate ecosystems in the place together with the children and their parents. So that creates a lot of collaboration, which is also a very important part of eco-village life. Another very important project is that in the beginning of 2010, 2011, especially in Senegal, there had already been for the last 10 years a very functioning national network, because GEN is composed of 5 big regions, which comprehends the whole world, but also they have a lot of national networks. And so in Senegal, there was a very well-functioning national network. And the then president went to see some of the villages, and he saw that that those villages that called themselves eco-villages had a completely different structure, where the people were not running away from the countryside. Also, the young people were staying because they were having cutting-edge, low-impact technologies, like, for example, a solar cooker, and they had energy with solar panels. And so they had even internet. And that allowed the young people to stay inside and not go into the big cities and end up in the slums or on the boats to Europe. So he saw that that was really such an incredible success. And so he decided to use the money for development and transform 14,000 traditional villages into eco-villages. And at that moment, there was for a very short time, unfortunately in Senegal, in the whole of Africa, very often governments are not very stable and don't last a long time. And so he did not last long in his place, unfortunately, in his role. But in that moment, there was also the first ministry for ecovillages, besides an agency that is called ANEF, which is still very active in Senegal. So a lot of good things coming from Senegal. And I live in the eco-village Damanur, as was said before, and my eco-village is a big eco-village, and together with Dr. Usman Ali Pame, who was at that time in 2013 was the president of the Global Eco-Village Network Africa, and I was the one of Gen Europe, and we decided to do something together with our eco-villages. And so we created a twinship where we brought the capacity that we have here in Italy everywhere, which is to conserve food, especially with pickles and with tomato sauce. And so the first time we went in 2016 and brought these technologies that gave the possibility to the women to become really independent. Because in that place, in the Sahel area, there is a lot of food for 2-3 months when there is the rain time, and then the rain seasons, and then for 9 months they don't have any fresh food. So that was a great help for them, and we brought back to our community the sense of community and the sense of a social net that is still really functioning, that you can find in a lot of places in Africa. And 2 years later, we came back and did another workshop with 100 women, this time from 10 different villages. And we also planted, together with the women and the children mainly, we planted 1,600 fruit trees to reforest the Sahel area. That's a project that started at that time with us, through this twinship, and is now going on with a lot of work also from other eco-villages that are helping, and that created REDES, which is the national network of the north of the Sahel. And this shows how very often eco-villages can be also of help to each other and really inspire each other a lot. Another really great example is the post-disaster recovery that has happened in Batuk Earth Village in the Philippines, because, you know, there are hurricanes and a lot of disasters are really very, very current, especially hurricanes. And after that, the Batuk village was destroyed twice completely. They created a very ecological, built into the ground, into the earth, eco-village, all with natural materials and with renewable energies. And especially they used the participatory tools in the social to help relieve the disaster trauma, which is, of course, very, very important to do. Then the last example that I have is the Itariru Green Belt Program, which is from an eco-village in Brazil that is called Terra Luminos, and they created an ecological corridor to guarantee security for endangered species, and they got a grant of, I don't know how many thousand euros, I don't remember, but they have this grant with which they bought something like 130 hectares of land, so that they could create a green belt for the endangered species like the jaguars, but there is a lot. And they did that with the help of the IUCN from the Netherlands. So as you can see, very often there is, very often you can find, when there is collaboration between institutions and eco-villages, you can really obtain a lot. For example, in my eco-village where I live, it's already 20 years that the municipality of one of the places where our community is spread out is run by Damanurians, already 20 years, and the majority are Damanurians, and we have more than 25 councillors in the different villages and in the different councils in the villages and municipalities around. And this is true for a lot of eco-villages in the north, they collaborate very much, especially with the region, so with the local and with the region, more than on a national level, but also often on a national level, for example, joining the forces of the Green parties or something like this. So I hope that this was an interesting insight into some of the possibilities and some of the places that there are in the Global Eco-Village Network. And if you have any more questions, don't hesitate to ask.
Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup, Makako, pour cette intervention. C'était très riche.
For this very rich intervention, I will have a question on the dimension of the link between eco-villages, the regions, municipalities, etc. Do you have examples of projects, common projects between regions, municipalities, and eco-villages that you have seen in the Gen that you think?
English as well, so that the conversation is easier. Would you have instances that you've noticed in the Global Eco-Village Network of fruitful relationships between eco-villages and cities and regions where you've seen common projects or at least common dynamics that have built up over time and that have led to fruitful results?
Yes, for example, I have, of course, a lot of experience with my own eco-village. So, for example, where we have the municipality, we have recuperated many old species, and we have created we have restored an old windmill that now is a museum, and where the children of the different schools can come and learn about the old ways of doing things and how to make soap and how to grind wheat and all these kind of things. Or a lot of eco-villages in Germany also especially are collaborating with the municipalities very much also to bring the eco-village principles into schools and to bring the schools to the eco-villages so that they can learn more about it. And there are a lot of educational conferences and other events that have been happening in the Global Eco-Village. There is another eco-village in Norway that has created a regenerative area together with the municipality, as well as in Spain. In Spain, there are a lot of collaboration is happening, especially between municipalities and eco-villages. But I think the biggest and the most stunning ones actually come from the Global South. Like I said before, Senegal. I mean, this is really a very cool thing. 14,000 traditional villages, and a lot of them has been already transformed into eco-villages, as well as the greening schools in Sikkim in Egypt. Sikkim is a big eco-village in the north of Egypt near Cairo, and they have created a university, Heliopolis, for sustainability, a normal university. So a lot is happening also on the academic way. So there are many examples, and if you just go on the website also of the Global Eco-Village Network, you will find a lot of examples.
D'accord, merci vraiment beaucoup. C'est très inspirant. Bien, je crois qu'il y a pas mal de matière.
I think there's a lot of material, but we would like to have the possibility to have your questions, to go deeper in this discussion. So now I will propose you to take questions from the public that I will translate. And afterwards, the French speakers will be able to speak, and then after Makako will have the possibility to contribute. Now, if you have questions, it is the moment.
There's building techniques that are specific to this kind of projects, and that can vary also from one landscape to another. And so the question is, how can you find access to the skills and resources that are needed to implement these techniques when you don't have them on your specific landscape? We're going to take like 4 or 5 questions. On va prendre 4 ou 5 questions. Donc s'il y a d'autres personnes qui ont des questions, c'est bienvenu. Oui, merci beaucoup. So this concept of eco-village, we've seen it's mostly at the local scale in villages. And is there a way to implement that at a much larger scale for cities, for instance? And he was talking about like waste management or the greening of cities and everything. How can we implement that at the larger scale? Is that possible? Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres questions? Oui, derrière peut-être? Oui. Mathieu has talked about the 3 levels of action at the individual, collective, and governmental level, and how can we encourage, how can we bring governments to be more active in promoting the development of eco-villages? Peut-être une dernière question? Donc nous passions à la suite. Vous en aviez une autre? It's a little bit linked. It's more than when bringing up this kind of project, sometimes there's regulatory barriers or difficulties to find public officers, public servants that are ready to work on these subjects. And how do you ensure that there's a technical and legal expertise available to foster these projects and help them move forward? I will propose that we stop now with the questions. I will leave the floor open for the speakers in France. Donc je vais proposer maintenant qu'on arrête avec les questions. On va laisser l'espace pour répondre du coup sur les intervenants français. Et Makako, du coup, on vous donnera la possibilité d'intervenir sur ces mêmes questions juste après. Merci beaucoup.
I'd like to answer the first question, which dealt with the building techniques, with the experience we have in our eco-village and consumption. In our eco-village, we dealt with local firms, companies, and we were together. As we were together, everybody brought its own brick, and we progressed together. And in our eco-village, we have people who have got lots of skills, building skills. We had the same difficulty for energetic renovation. We really needed to build up our skills and to deal with enterprises that have the skills. They are emerging in the academic area. We can do lots of efforts. So does the government to have initial training and lean management. Building techniques always evolved, and we must adjust and must continue training, be it with renovation or building. I leave you to answer the other question.
What is certain is when we see eco-village that created in France it's not more about, the problems are not technical issues because we've got lots of information on internet, etc. The issues are more on another plane. On the scales, it's sure that the vision of the eco-villages are less urban, first of all. There's a logic because on the actual system, the city is industrial production with concentration of people, so the paradigm between the eco-villages is not to promote metropolises. There's a study about the number of interaction we have in our life, and the cities create an animation and no social links. After cities can be an assembly of habitats, but we have to descend to the individual network, because in urban areas we don't know our neighbors, and the trust is very hard to build. On the political questions, issues, being able to give power on the local and citizens is really key. The government has to get out of very centralized way of thinking and work more on territories, and there's a beginning of a switch of a cultural policy that is happening right now. The industrial world that has thought to make more and more things, this is what created inequalities. Being able to have autonomy, local autonomy in production is also a way to go through a more solidary and equal worlds. One thing is, an issue is to have alternatives to bank. Some citizen bank do a lot of work, but there are not a lot. So we need financial institutions to give power to people. Also, from a legal perspective, is possible but very complex. It's not that it's impossible to do, but it's a work to share, to accompany projects, to simplify on those legal aspects. So we see that the key of Ecovillage is the relation with the mayor and the community, and not with the central government.
I think we had several craftsmen here, artisans, that helps us build. We need more time. We need to get bigger. In France, there is an awareness that is building up and that contributes to social changes. And we need different techniques, building techniques. Our neighbor welcomes people that see new techniques, and these people can ask for artisans, to craftsmen, to use those techniques.
I'll ask Makako to give your perspective on those initial questions.
So let me first talk about the first question, which is how to have access to the knowledge about building materials. There is one thing that is really important to say, and that is that different environments, a little bit as Mathieu already said, but different environments require different solutions. So there is not one solution. There's not one ecological solution. Also because it's really about using the national materials and the places that are on the site, and so that it's very often, I think what is very important to understand is that there is a lot of knowledge in place about how to live in a harmonic way with the place, especially in indigenous communities. So we have on the one side to learn, and on the other side to bring in some new things, and some techniques can be really used in different regions and in different situations. But you can find, for example, there is on the GEN website, there is a solution library that we have been trying to create, but which is far from perfect, but which is a start, where all the different ecovillages and projects are making available all their solutions that they have been trying out. And I think that's a very beautiful way to share, because it's really about sharing our knowledge. How to implement on a larger scale, like in cities. So there is actually, there are some eco-villages in the cities, so that, for example, there is LA Eco-Village who created an eco-village in the center of Los Angeles and creating a whole eco neighborhood around it. And there are some other examples where eco-villages are also created in the cities, which means that their vegetables are grown, for example, on the roofs of the cities. And most of all, I think the most important, or one of the most important aspects definitely, is the social. So to use participatory tools in decision-making processes, in order to be able to create a different interaction between peoples. Because what is most important, and where, especially in cities, there is the biggest discomfort, is really linked to the isolation, is linked to the fact that you don't even know your neighbors, is linked to the fact that you have nothing in common. So Transition Town, for example, has created a lot of movement inside the cities, which can be brought to another level, like to an eco-village level. And then, of course, the relationship with the land in eco-villages is something that is also very important. And I really share Mathieu's analysis that it is far healthier to live in non-city environments, because our nerve system is more soothed, because there are the interactions are meaningful. And then, in the city you have thousands of interactions with thousands of people, sometimes even every day, but they're never meaningful. And we need meaning in our lives. So in order to have meaningful relationships, it's really beautiful to create new social nets and new social relationships, so that we can live up to our full potential as human beings. And I think this can be done both. It's easier to be done on the country, but it's also possible to be done in the cities. And then to the last question that I noted down, which is how do we know that there are the technical competences? This is really something that usually in the eco-village world, the people who are part of the eco-village world are mostly people who are coming from the mainstream world and going because they are looking for a different way of life into the eco-village world, but they are bringing a lot of competences with them. And very often they have been researching for a long time. You always have competences of builders of all different types. And so I think you can find them even in the eco-village world, and also between eco-villages, there is very often a very good exchange of knowledge and of courses. And this is actually the best way to exchange between eco-villages, which is skills and knowledge. And I hope I answered your questions.
Oui, je pense bien sûr que vous avez répondu.
Yes, you have answered to the questions. Thanks a lot.
Très riche, effectivement. Je ne sais pas si les intervenants entre eux souhaiteraient se poser des questions mutuelles.
I don't know if the speakers between themselves would like to ask them questions, but it's nearly the end of this conference, so we'll ask to invite Swami Shubharatananda Puri to come on stage. He lived in South India, in Bombay. She had the degree in chemical engineering and then met Amma in 1889. He travels a lot to give conferences. He's part of the C20 team and read a lot of the work that has been published in the recent years. So this is why I would ask you to share with us what your thoughts.
Discussions we've had here in relationship to the overall work of the C20 that you've been witnessing over the last months. Thank you so much.
Honorable Mayor of Pangua, Jean-Claude Fries, Madam Makako Tamaris, the former president of the Global Ecovillage Network and the General Representative to the United Nations, Matthew Lebon, Madam Celia Hibou Swansik, if I'm right, yes. Dorian Spark, Swamini Amrita Jyoti Prana. I'm extremely honored to be here to take part in this amazing discussion that we have had on ecovillages, an experiment towards sustainable and resilient communities.
Je suis très honoré d'avoir pu intervenir aujourd'hui dans le cadre de cet échange sur les écovillages et la manière dont on peut avancer vers des communautés plus durables et résilientes.
I have been asked to give some final comments on this discussion that we have had, where we had so much of wisdom shared amongst us.
On m'a demandé de donner quelques remarques, quelques éclairages en complément du coup des discussions aujourd'hui qui ont été très riches et très passionnantes.
And to see its relation with the C20 activities that have been happening in India under the chairmanship and under the leadership of our most beloved Amma.
Et de faire du coup un lien entre l'échange d'aujourd'hui et les travaux du C20 de ces dernières années qui ont été menés du coup sous la direction d'Ama.
The working group under Dr. Manisha and Professor Vinod Menon, whom we heard today, they have been doing an amazing work, especially in learning a lot and sharing a lot about sustainable and resilient communities.
Le groupe de travail qui est présidé par Dr Manisha et Monsieur Vinod Menon que nous avons entendu aujourd'hui a fait un travail remarquable sur cette question d'avancer vers des communautés plus durables et résilientes.
There have been a lot of summits and webinars and meetings happening in person on the topics of climate change and sustainability throughout the few months that we had after India took up the the presidency of G20 and Amma was appointed the chairperson of the C20.
Très rapidement, après que le gouvernement indien ait pris la responsabilité de l'organisation du G20 cette année et que Amma a été nommé comme responsable du coup de tous les travaux du Civil 20, il y a eu de nombreuses réunions, de nombreux événements qui ont été organisés sur ce thème des communautés durables et résilientes.
And I'm sure the discussion that we had today will also find its way, some of the points that we discussed will also find its way in our journey towards making the final policy document, which will then be submitted to the G20 leaders.
Et je suis sûr qu'une bonne partie des échanges qu'on a eus aujourd'hui vont pouvoir nourrir les recommandations de politique publique qui seront soumises au gouvernement du G20 en septembre.
I would first like to share a few points on the importance of ecovillages, of such sustainable and resilient communities in today's times.
J'aimerais d'abord commencer par le rôle et la pertinence du coup des écovillages dans la société d'aujourd'hui.
There are three things, in English we would say 3 P's, that find a place in the priority list of most of the people.
Il y a 3 choses qui se retrouvent en fait dans les priorités de la plupart des gens.
For the majority, it goes this way: profit, people, and planet.
Pour la majorité des gens, ces 3 choses sont le profit, les personnes et la planète.
In fact, it should be the opposite way: planet, people, and profit.
Mais en fait, il faudrait pouvoir regarder les choses dans le sens inverse, c'est-à-dire il faudrait mettre la planète en premier.
But the tragedy is that for many, it doesn't even go towards people and planet. It just stays in profit.
Et la tragédie, c'est que pour beaucoup de gens, en fait, on s'arrête au profit et la planète et les autres personnes sont juste oubliées de la liste.
And if this is the case, if our focus is just on the profit alone, then it will be very, very difficult to sustain this planet.
Et en fait, si c'est le cas, si on se préoccupe seulement du profit, alors ça va être très dur de conserver tout simplement notre planète.
It is said that this planet Earth has been existing since 4.6 billion years.
On dit que la planète Terre existe depuis 4,6 milliards d'années.
I don't know how many zeros that is. So let us say it has existed for 46 years. It's easy for us to comprehend.
Je ne sais pas combien de zéros ça fait, donc on va dire, si on considère que l'ensemble de l'existence de la Terre couvre les 46 dernières années.
And if the planet has been there for 46 years, as per science, human beings have been here for 4 years.
Et donc si la Terre existe depuis 46 ans, si on considère que l'existence de la Terre, c'est depuis les dernières 46 années, alors ça veut dire que les êtres humains ont existé pendant 4 ans.
Industrial Revolution started a minute before.
La révolution industrielle, dont on a tellement entendu parler, elle a commencé il y a 1 minute à partir de maintenant.
And in this time, we have finished nearly 50% of the natural resources.
Et dans 7 minutes, nous avons consommé 50% des ressources naturelles disponibles sur Terre.
This is the way, we have consumed natural resources without trying to think deeply about it, without trying to give back anything.
Et c'est la manière et le rythme auquel nous avons consommé ces ressources naturelles sans vraiment même nous en rendre compte.
The chairperson of C20 and my master Amma, she puts it very, very beautifully.
Donc la responsable du C20 et mon maître, Amma, elle l'explique d'une manière que je trouve très belle.
She says, many see the world as an economy and not as a community.
Elle dit que beaucoup voient le monde comme une économie et pas comme une communauté.
And when your focus is on economy, you're only thinking about profits, you're only thinking about GDP.
Et quand vous vous concentrez sur l'aspect économique du monde, on se concentre du coup sur le PNB, sur le profit.
And what most of the people would love is unlimited growth in their profits, in their work, in their industry.
Beaucoup de gens aimeraient bien pouvoir bénéficier d'une croissance infinie dans leurs ressources, dans leur travail, etc.
And we expect that the earth will give us unending resources towards it.
Et on a en quelque sorte l'attente que le monde nous donne des ressources illimitées.
But such growth and unending growth is not always healthy.
Mais une croissance sans fin n'est pas toujours saine.
Amma gives the example of a cancer cell. A cancer cell also grows without limits.
Amma donne l'exemple des cellules cancéreuses, pardon. Le propre des cellules cancéreuses, justement, c'est de grandir sans aucune limite.
But what does it lead to? It leads to the deterioration of health or even the death of the patient.
Mais on voit bien que ça amène des conséquences très négatives pour la santé des personnes qui peuvent même les amener jusqu'à la mort.
So what we need is sustainable growth and not unending growth.
Donc ce dont on a besoin, c'est d'une croissance qui soit soutenable et pas d'une croissance infinie.
I always feel if this earth was an apartment, we would never get our security deposit back because we have created so much damage to it.
J'ai vraiment le sentiment qu'aujourd'hui, si la Terre était un appartement dont on était les locataires, on n'aurait aucune chance de récupérer la caution tellement on l'a mis en l'air.
Ecovillages, they harmlessly integrate human activities into the natural environment.
Les écovillages sont une manière d'intégrer l'activité humaine de manière plus harmonieuse dans son environnement.
And they support a healthy, sustainable development.
Et ils soutiennent un développement plus soutenable.
From the discussions that we had, I could just, put in short what I learned today from the work that the Ecovillages are doing and the goals of the Ecovillage.
Donc des discussions d'aujourd'hui, je veux surtout retenir ce que j'ai appris aujourd'hui des écovillages, de la dynamique qui les sous-tend.
Ecovillages are intentional communities that strive to live in harmony with nature, adopting sustainable practices.
Donc les écovillages sont des communautés humaines qui s'efforcent de vivre plus en harmonie avec la nature en utilisant des pratiques et des techniques durables.
So that the ecological footprint, can be maintained.
Afin que l'empreinte écologique reste limitée.
To enhance the overall well-being of its residents, of the residents.
Et ils cherchent à améliorer le bien-être en fait de leurs résidents.
And our speakers spoke efficiently about the 4 major goals of an eco-village. One is, of course, environmental sustainability.
Donc les intervenants ont parlé des 4 buts principaux des écovillages. L'un d'entre eux, c'est la durabilité environnementale.
The second is community building.
Le deuxième, c'est la construction de communautés humaines.
The third is self-sufficiency.
La troisième, c'est l'autosuffisance.
And the fourth, though we didn't have much time to discuss on it, I feel it is knowledge sharing.
Et le quatrième, j'aurais peut-être aimé qu'on puisse approfondir un petit peu plus, c'est le partage de connaissances.
We saw with the first, with environmental sustainability, as to how eco-villages embrace practices like permaculture, organic farming.
Pour le premier point, on a vu comment les écovillages peuvent amener des nouvelles choses comme la permaculture, les jardinages, etc.
Sustainable water management techniques.
Des gestions durables de l'eau.
Renewable energy resources.
Les énergies renouvelables, etc.
It all minimizes ecological harm and preserves natural resources.
Ça réduit l'empreinte écologique et ça aide à préserver les ressources naturelles.
We are able to minimize carbon footprints. We are able to preserve biodiversity.
On peut réduire l'empreinte carbone, on peut préserver mieux la biodiversité.
And surely such communities have a great role in paving way towards a greener future.
Et certainement, ces communautés ont un rôle important dans le fait d'ouvrir un chemin vers un avenir qui soit plus durable.
We also saw the second aspect of how eco-villages are so important in building social connections and in community engagement.
Nous avons également vu le deuxième aspect, la contribution en fait des écovillages à des réseaux sociaux et un engagement dans la communauté qui soit plus important.
We heard many of the residents speaking in the video that we saw about how the spaces available for the community help the community to bond with each other.
Et on a vu comment les espaces qui sont créés en fait au sein de la communauté permettent aux personnes de cette communauté de créer des liens entre eux.
Shared gardens, communal spaces, shared facilities. I'll be having a look today at the facilities here. All this really help us develop this community spirit.
Ces espaces communs, ces jardins partagés, ces salles de réunion, etc., c'est ça qui permet, dans le temps, de construire ce sens du collectif.
It allows individuals to create a very supportive network, a sangha in one way.
Ça aide les individus à créer un réseau qui soit plus soutenant, une communauté.
Which leads to increased well-being and a higher quality of life.
Qui permettent d'accroître le bien-être et d'avoir une meilleure qualité de vie.
Madam Makako spoke about finding meaning in life, and that can only come through having a proper community network, which is very true and which is sometimes so lacking in cities.
Makako a parlé du coup du fait de trouver un sens dans la vie, et c'est très vrai, c'est très nécessaire pour les humains de manière générale, et c'est effectivement peut-être plus dur quand on est dans un environnement urbain.
And as some of our speakers remarked, in a city, you may be in your apartment for 15 or 20 years, but you still don't know who your neighbor is, and there is no chance of much of interaction with them.
Bien souvent, dans les villes, on peut habiter un appartement pendant 15 ou 20 ans et en fait, au bout de 15 ou 20 ans, toujours pas bien connaître son voisin. Et les opportunités d'interaction ne sont pas forcément toujours très présentes.
We also saw the importance of ecovillages in self-sufficiency, with the farming, the small-scale farming, with poultry. It takes care of the food requirements.
On a vu l'importance d'avancer vers plus d'autosuffisance avec les exemples agricoles, les poules, le jardin, etc.
And with the renewable energy resources and with the organic waste management methods, the communities develop self-dependency totally.
Et il y a une sens de responsabilité locale en fait qui se développe avec la gestion du coup des déchets, le recyclage, etc.
And it makes one feel more safe and secure, especially in today's world.
Et ça aide en fait l'individu à se sentir en sécurité, et particulièrement dans le monde d'aujourd'hui.
We saw some beautiful examples that Madame Makako gave from Africa as to how in those areas, because of the eco-villages, so many communities have become self-sufficient, self-reliant, and children are able to go to school, pursue education. Such a great example, and it surely has that goal of becoming self-sufficient.
Et on a vu, Makako a brillamment montré du coup les dynamiques, notamment en Afrique, à quel point les écovillages ont pu permettre à de nombreux enfants du coup d'avoir un accès plus stable à l'éducation notamment.
And the last, I feel ecovillages, they serve as living laboratories as well for sustainability, education and knowledge sharing.
Je trouve que les écovillages en fait sont des laboratoires vivants pour l'éducation à la durabilité et le partage des connaissances.
They provide so many opportunities for experiential learning.
Ils donnent un certain nombre d'opportunités pour apprendre en faisant.
And a practical skill development as well in many areas.
Et le développement de compétences très pragmatiques dans des domaines très divers.
Because when you come to such villages, you get such a know-how of all these things in one place, of organic farming, renewable energy resources, natural building techniques which we discussed about, waste management.
Parce que quand on va dans des lieux comme ça, en fait, on a accès aussi à un regroupement d'expertise sur ces questions de construction écologique, de gestion des déchets, d'autonomie alimentaire, etc.
Dear sisters and brothers, there is a huge responsibility that we all have to stop this earth being exploited further.
Chers frères et sœurs, on a une très grande responsabilité dans le fait de limiter l'exploitation de la terre.
We need to put in efforts if we want to live peacefully and we want the coming generations to live peacefully as well.
Il nous faut mettre en place de nombreux efforts si nous voulons pouvoir nous-mêmes vivre en paix, mais aussi permettre aux générations futures de vivre en paix.
We all heard this Native American saying, but I think it is worth repeating it every time so that it goes a little more deeper into us.
On a tous entendu ce proverbe des Indiens d'Amérique, mais je pense que ça vaut la peine de le répéter encore pour qu'il fasse son chemin peut-être un petit peu plus profondément à l'intérieur de nous.
The saying is, we have not inherited this earth from our ancestors, but we have inherited it from our future generations.
Et ce proverbe dit qu'on n'a pas hérité la terre de nos ancêtres, mais on l'hérite des générations à venir.
The nature provides a free lunch, but only if we control our appetite.
La nature nous donne un déjeuner gratuit tous les jours, mais seulement si on sait contrôler notre appétit.
The greatest threat to our planet is the belief that someone else will save it.
Et la plus grande menace pour notre planète aujourd'hui, c'est la croyance que c'est quelqu'un d'autre qui va se charger de la sauver.
I remember the words of Helen Keller. She would say, "The only thing worse than being blind is having sight but no vision."
Et je me rappelle les mots d'Hélène Keller, cette fameuse écrivaine qui disait la seule chose pire que d'être aveugle, c'est d'avoir la vue, mais pas de vision.
By embracing the principles of Ecovillages, we can work towards a more resilient, equitable, and environmentally friendly, conscious future.
En s'engageant dans cette dynamique des écovillages, nous pouvons aller vers un futur qui soit plus durable, plus résilient et plus accueillant également.
It is very essential to support and promote the establishment of ecovillages as a crucial step in building a better world for generations to come.
Il est crucial de pouvoir soutenir le développement d'initiatives de ce type pour aller vers un monde plus durable.
And thank you, Honorable Mayor, for all your support in building up this eco-village here.
Et merci encore beaucoup à Monsieur le maire de tout son soutien ces dernières années pour accompagner le développement de ces initiatives.
Madam Makako gave us the figures that there are to date 6,090 eco-villages. Hope in a few years we have a few more zeros added to it. It becomes 60,000, 6 million. We hope it happens very soon.
Makako a pu présenter le fait qu'il y avait des milliers d'écovillages aujourd'hui dans le monde et on espère que le nombre de zéros va aller croissant dans les années prochaines pour que toutes ces dynamiques continuent à se développer.
Thank you very much once again for having me in this session and I wish the Eco-Village here all the best in its development.
Merci beaucoup de m'avoir accueilli aujourd'hui et je souhaite le meilleur du coup pour le développement de cette initiative par la suite.
And I hope all of you have also enjoyed this great wisdom that we all could hear from our distinguished panelists who have taken part, some here in person, and of course those who shared their wisdom online.
Et j'espère que vous avez pu tirer parti de la sagesse des intervenants qui ont été mobilisés aujourd'hui, à la fois en présentiel ici et à distance.
Merci beaucoup. Om Amriteshwari Namaha.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Swamiji, for these very inspiring words. Merci beaucoup, Swamiji, pour ces mots très inspirants. Et nous allons terminer avec cette clôture, le webinaire d'aujourd'hui. We will close now the webinar with these closing words. A lot of heartfelt thanks to all the people that have participated online. We are very, very happy that we were able to share all these discussions and knowledge with you, and very open also to continuing the discussion afterwards via email or if there's any questions or contributions to what has been discussed. Donc on est très heureux d'avoir pu aussi partager cet événement à travers le monde aujourd'hui. Il y avait un certain nombre de personnes qui étaient connectées. L'événement est disponible aussi sur YouTube si vous voulez le partager par la suite à des amis, etc. Et donc on est ouvert bien sûr pour continuer la discussion si vous avez des questions ou des choses que vous voulez approfondir par la suite. Je crois qu'on va en terminer là. Merci aussi aux bonnes centaines de participants qui ont été présents aujourd'hui en présentiel pour cet événement. And thank you so much to all the many participants that were there in person for this event. And all the best for the C20 group, for the further work coming up and final rendering of the proposals to the G20 governments in the coming months. Et donc tout le meilleur pour les équipes de travail du C20 qui vont rendre du coup leurs propositions au gouvernement du G20 au mois de juillet. Ça arrive bientôt maintenant. Merci beaucoup et bonne journée à vous.